Welcome back everyone to YCS Utrecht 2020. We have a little Forbidden and Limitless discussion as this is one of the first major events of the new format. Joined with me is our Worlds competitor Darren Stevenson as one of our hosts, and of course myself, Farfa, as you probably know me best. So the new Forbidden and Limitless, it was a big shake-up of the new format and probably one of the most surprising we'd seen in a while. What's your general thoughts when you first saw it overall?
I had no idea what to think. It was crazy. I think we both had a same reaction to it. We had just no idea what to think. Normally there's a clear best deck right after the shake-up, as it were, but this time round it was sort of what on earth do we do now? We just don't know which deck to pick because everything just got hit in that list and we just weren't sure what to do. And I think now the meta is sort of shaping up a little bit now, but every sort of deck is sort of changed in its own sort of way. It's crazy.
So speaking of the major changes, we can probably start with the big elephant in the room. As you guys know, Orcust and Sky Striker, really dominant deck, over 50% of top cut at multiple YCSs. Orcust Striker lost, we'll probably start with, I guess, Orcust more likely, Harp Horror ban. That was more of a consistency hit over power. Do you think we'll see a bit of Orcust this weekend, or do you think it's maybe going to fall off with Spyro and the new Shaddoll deck?
I'm not sure. I think people would still play Orcust just because it's one of the decks that can always play and it can still do the same stuff with Babel and IP. The Orcust Striker deck I don't think we'll see anymore because Engage was sort of the link to put both the two decks together to allow such a splashable engine. Now that Engage is gone, I think we'll start to see more of an Orcust deck and a Striker deck, because Striker still has cards like Shizuku and stuff which can add its resources, and it still has a utility with Jamming Wave and Afterburners. And whereas we're going back to Orcust, yeah, it did lose Harp Horror, which is one of its major extenders and one of its best starter cards. However, it still has stuff like Orcust Nightmare, and it still has Dingersu, which is one of the best removal in the game. And the fact that it still has that insane removal and being able to set up boards like Dingersu, Galar, and the Crescendo, a counter trap that also banishes as well, I think it's still really strong, and it consistently does that too, and I think it'll be a really good pick this meta.
You mentioned a little bit about Sky Striker there, so they are probably most likely going to be split into two separate decks now. You can't really have that sort of combined heavy spell synergy anymore. Speaking of Striker, Engage gone. I don't know how happy everyone was about that. I think a lot of people were super relieved. But overall, Striker, do you think we'll see much of that? Not also forgetting that Kagari is still in the game. At 3 now, yeah. It was returned to. So what do you think about Striker now, pure Striker?
It's crazy to think that Kagari's back at 3, right? I don't think that's anything thought that would happen. But I also didn't think Engage would be on the Forbidden Limitless as well. But here we are. Striker is always a deck that everybody thought, every list, that it's done for, right? Kagari went to 1, Multi-Roll went to 1, everybody thought it's done for. But it's such a resilient deck that just keeps on showing up in the meta, and people are probably writing it off again. I tell you what, it's still really good. It may have lost Engage, which is one of its most powerful cards, sure. But it still has stuff like Widow Anchor, Multi-Roll, which is one of the best cards in the game, to be able to set all your resources back. It's one of the best control decks we've ever had, and I'd be very surprised to see it not in this meta, just because it's so versatile.
Moving on to some of the more prominent other decks that were present, we had Thunder Dragon was a major competitor, Titan Control, you had the sort of Dragon combo variant, as well as you had the sort of more control variant, relying mostly on Colossus, who is now completely banned, not limited or anything, they just removed that card. What's your thoughts on Thunder Dragon going forward?
Colossus being forbidden is crazy. Well, it kind of goes hand in hand with Engage, right? When you've lost one, you gotta lose the other. And I think a lot of people would agree that if you would take away Engage, it's only right to take away Colossus, or vice versa. Colossus being gone, it's not the end of the world. Thunder Dragon is still really strong. It's lost one of its main win conditions to stop people from adding from the deck, but it still has Titan. And Thunder Dragon Titan is still a really strong card that has on-the-spot removal. It doesn't target, just like Dingersu. And it's really powerful. It's a defensive card as well, unlike Dingersu. And I think this deck is still really strong. You'll have to think of different ways to play it, such as stuff like Instant Fusion to summon Kaminari attack and stuff. But as a general link ladder deck that can end on Titan and IP, I think it's still able to do that. And I think it's still a really strong deck for sure.
It's not going to be completely gone, but we'll see this weekend just exactly how many Thunder Dragon decks will appear throughout the day. Another, I suppose, one of the more heavier sort of control decks we've seen in recent years, Salamangreat, losing that Mirage Stalio, that consistency, getting your Gazelle out of the deck or your level 4 to extend into Dweller or something. The Stalio hit in some ways really big, but people have adapted very quickly. We've seen already with like the microcoder stuff and things like that. Not forgetting as well, debug now back to 3 to compensate. So a little bit of give and take there with Salamangreat. What's your thoughts on that?
My first impression with Salamangreat gone, with Mirage Stalio gone, I thought the deck lost a lot of its utility and a lot of its versatility. But I've been proven wrong these past couple of weeks. We saw that it's been doing really well at like regionals and stuff, and the deck has just been able to adapt. It's lost its rank 3 engine, it can't really play Sea Archiver or the Dangers anymore, but the deck still just does the same thing, because all the Salamangreats get to Balinks and Sunlight Wolf, and it still has Gazelle, which is one of the most versatile cards in the game, being able to send your traps like Roar and Rage, and it just does the same thing, sets up traps and defends itself, and it recycles Ash Blossom, which is one of the best hand traps in the game as well. And like that deck is still really, really versatile, and it's still really, really sticky, and I'd be very surprised if we don't see it in Top Cut in one of the most represented decks for sure.
Representation is something that's very important as well, because I think Salamangreat had the more accessible sort of thing that players had. So like, it was just like 3 structure decks, so it's a very kind of popular deck for that reason. So we'll see if we'll see any more of that this weekend. One hit that I think that everyone kind of was taken aback by, just seemingly out of nowhere, not really doing too well, just a couple of tops here and there with Pendulum. Now they've removed Electromite. I feel like maybe that's because, well, if you hit all these other best decks, you kind of have to like, give and take with like sort of maybe like a tier below. Electromite gone. What do you see as the future for Pendulum as well, not forgetting Servant to 1?
Exactly, it was definitely needed. You're right in saying that if you hit the decks at the top, the decks like sort of below that will just creep to the top. And I think they saw that coming, because like Tempest Magician also got forbidden as well, which makes sense because that card was part of the Pendulum sort of strategy. And Electromite is one of the best Sling 2s that they've ever printed. And it makes sense that like they would have to hit it, because with that card being like legal, it's going to cause a lot of havoc. And it sort of solved the problems in Pendulum where like you needed to have like an opposite scale to be able to play, and Electromite just gets you that opposite scale. Now it isn't so cut and dry, because you have to like build your deck to have an equal number of like low and high scales. Servant going to 1 isn't that much of a big deal, because there's still multiple copies of it. You still play like the spell to be able to search it as well, and you still got multiple copies of that. I think you can still play like 7 Servants in the deck. It is still really, really strong, and it still puts up like the same boards. It doesn't really need Electromite. The only reason it needed Electromite was for those awkward hands to like have like the opposite scale. But if you can build a really consistent build, I think Pendulum could do really well at this event as well.
Master and Demion, such a great card, going first and second, so we'll see if we'll get any Pendulum in Top Cut this weekend. Some of the more minor hits, or returns rather, I'd say. Tour Guide back to 2, one of my favorite cards of all time. Are we going to see some BA this weekend, or some Tribes in Top Cut?
Well, Tour Guide's one of the best cards that they've ever printed, and to see it back at 2 is an amazing thing. And I think there's going to be a lot of versatile decks with that card, especially Burning Abyss as well.
Nothing for Tribe?
Tribe
Infecting Virus?
Tribe Infecting Virus. Maybe Mermail will come back and do some like cool combos with the Atlanteans and Tribe Infecting Virus. That'll be crazy to see on stream, but we'll see. Maybe that'll be cool.
Maybe. All right, thanks everyone for joining us. This has been our Forbidden and Limitless discussion, and we'll be back with more coverage very shortly.